It's the ML Sports Platter back with you, brought to you by Stanley Law Offices and Camilla's Golf Club. We've got my man Doug Sherman, ESPN, on the road, baby, and we're talking some Syracuse basketball. Things a little different now with a couple of wins. Maybe the fans have piped down a little bit. Doug, welcome to the show for a few, buddy.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be here on my way to the Dome right now.
I love it. So JJ Starling is back, and you see what? I mean, he just changes it all, doesn't he?
He changes everything. He makes everybody around him better, and he is your alpha male who can go get a bucket anytime you want, seemingly. And his energy seems to have been infectious. You know, we've seen a bump for a little bit in Chris Bell, but I'm not so sure that's going to be lasting. But in terms of the energy that we see out of Eddie Lampkin, out of Taylor, out of Davis, those guys are providing energy, and it coincides with JJ's return. And I do think that perhaps Coach Autry sees a grouping now, a little less Elijah Moore, a little less Chris Bell, going with the guys who are full energy, full enthusiasm, led by JJ, that maybe this is the grouping that can continue to win more games than not.
And he can play the two, he plays the one. And look, there's a bunch of sets, obviously, for each position for JJ, but where you see him playing both, do you think he maximizes the roster and himself more at the one or at the two, or is at this point a coin flip?
I'd say he's better with the ball in his hands from what we've seen. You know, he's not a true point guard. He's not going to look to set up his teammates as much as perhaps you might think out of a traditional point guard, but he is a true combo guard. Certainly handles it well enough and can create for others. But, you know, the way this roster is constituted, you can't afford to have a pass first, pass only point guard. You need for your primary ball handler to be a scoring threat as well.
Doug Sherman with us, ESPN, couple more minutes with you here. And, you know, this ACC, it's kind of like Duke right now and everybody else, as you know. I know there's been a couple of surprises, but Duke just looks like the best team clearly to me. And maybe a couple others will make a run. Syracuse certainly with a couple of wins here. Is it better when you, Doug, when a conference is down like this and you're trying to get on a win streak and you're Syracuse, is it better where, you know, you play teams that are more in the toss-up category for you to stack wins, or is it better when you have maybe a little bit of that, but more of the tougher teams down the line, right, to get better Q wins in the one or two compartments? I mean, which way is better when you're trying to get the season back like Syracuse?
Well, I think it's better in the short term, as we've seen the last couple of games, to maybe face teams that are more where you are in the middle of the standings or down toward the bottom. But eventually, as we'll see against Louisville, you'll get an opportunity to play one of the top teams, and you have to take advantage of those and get a quad one and a quad two win. I mean, a week ago, they hadn't even won a game over a power conference opponent. So, you know, you take what you can get. You were happy to get the 2 wins over Georgia Tech and Boston College. But now you got to start beating some of the better teams when you get those opportunities. And like you said, in this year's ACC, those opportunities are going to be relatively limited.
You know, when they were struggling big time before the couple wins and JJ comes back, you know, it's easy now when a team goes through a long stretch and they're just struggling for any reason and say, well, NIL portal. I mean, you can always go back and blame that because it's still like it's early and it's the collection of players and you're just hoping it works. So how much of it do you think was NIL and portal, you know, in the beginning with these guys just trying to gel together? Because, Doug, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for 300 and some odd programs in America. It's just a weird time.
Exactly. And you don't know what the mix is going to be. And it's just like recruiting out of the high school ranks in that as coaches, you really don't know. There are very few assurances. And even if on paper you have the best group of incoming players, whether they're 18 years old or 22 years old, you just don't know how they blend. And so who knows? The NIL piece is very, very important. And we don't know where Syracuse stacks up because those numbers are not public. So were the guys that Red and his staff brought in this year the top of their list, of their wish list? Were there other people that they couldn't afford? We don't know. We'll never know that. They're not going to share that sort of thing. So you make do with what you can get. You try to make good decisions, try to get some fortune. You know, the Eddie Lampkin acquisition is looking better the last couple of weeks. He seems to be moving well. The back, he told me the other day, is fine. It's behind him, and he certainly seems to be playing with an energy that we thought he might. I mean, he was such a priority for them last year. It seemed like the season wasn't even over for 5 minutes, and they had a commitment from Eddie Lampkin. So he's a guy they can't afford to miss on. And so maybe with his back and with some of his shortcomings in the first half of the season, you swallow that and hope, now you're starting to get your money's worth, whatever they're paying him, out of the NIL deal that they had with Big Eddie.
Yeah, no doubt. In February, that will help a lot as well because he's a guy who has played in the tournament. He's got that experience, and a big guy down low to rebound certainly can help as well. Doug, I got one more for you. I'll let you get on the gorgeous roads of I-90 without me in your ear. I got a career question for you. What does a Doug Sherman at 18 years old do today? How do you attack it? If you're going into the broadcast business, a lot of things have changed since you went to school in the late 80s. Me, even from 98 to 02, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. A lot of things have changed. How do you approach it today if you're going into broadcast? Is it still the same old, get to Newhouse, do your thing? And because, I mean, kids are doing that still today, and rightfully so, right?
Yeah, it's still the right avenue if you can do it. Get yourself to a good journalism school and learn journalism. I mean, even though the methods have changed dramatically, how to tell stories, we're ultimately storytellers in 2025, just like we were in the 1980s. So I was a freshman at Syracuse 40 years ago, which is hard to believe. And we were still editing audio tape with razor blades. And so obviously the technology is a lot different now.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually learning how to tell stories and communicate, it doesn't matter what medium you are on. Ultimately, if you can communicate, you can figure out whatever technology is available to you at that time. So I do think journalism school is the right path. And I think that if I were to do it over again in 2025, I think that would still be the best course of action. And with me personally, when I got to Newhouse and Mike Tirico was in my class and the other guys who were around, Ian Eagle a couple of years later, Sean McDonough a couple of years in front of me, you're thrown into this huge competitive environment where lots and lots of guys, even though they chose Newhouse and thought they were going to be broadcasters, realized, if not immediately over the course of a couple of years, that this isn't for me. I can't keep up. I don't know that it's something I want to continue to pursue. And that's always going to be true, too. You're always going to be in a very competitive space, and the kids who are coming out of Newhouse now also have to compete and fight that fight.
Yeah, a couple of good broadcasters named there, no doubt, including this guy, Doug Sherman. You're a pro. Love listening, love watching, love working with you when I'm there as well. It's all brought to you here by Camillus Golf Club, Burn Dairy, and Stanley Law Offices. Doug Sherman of ESPN. Thank you so much, my friend. Be well, okay?
My pleasure, Mike. Anytime.